Something else Joe Biden did yesterday was sign his first ever veto. And it was a good one. Let's have a quick gander at the news coverage of that. I'm going to, of course, interrupt it and tell you what you can do.
President Biden issued the first veto of his presidency on a bill that passed with bipartisan support. As the AP describes it, Biden sought to kill a Republican-authored measure that would ban the government from considering environmental impacts or potential lawsuits when making investment decisions for people's retirement plans. Biden released a message explaining his thoughts on the measure after the veto.
I just signed this veto.
Good Christ. This is why you shouldn't be a pessimist, because I just assumed, because of the different time, there would be absolutely no one in the audience. I see all the comments. I'm going to respond to them after this. It's a relatively short segment. We'll definitely get to it. Delighted to have y'all here, by the way. Let's watch Dark Brandon keep his streak going.
Because the legislation passed by the Congress would put at risk the retirement savings of individuals across the country. They couldn't take into consideration investments that wouldn't be impacted by climate, impacted by overpaying executives, and that's why I decided to veto it. It makes sense to veto it.
Democratic Senators Joe Manchin and John Tester voted with Republicans in the Senate, while Congressman Jared Golden voted with the GOP in the House. In response to Biden's veto, Manchin released a statement criticizing the Biden administration. It reads in part this administration continues to prioritize their radical policy agenda over the economic, energy, and national security needs of our country. And it is absolutely infuriating. Despite a clear and bipartisan rejection of the rule from Congress, President Biden is choosing to put his administration's progressive agenda above the well-being of the American people.
All right. I didn't, in the description, I didn't put this link in the live stream. It will be there in the VOD. One of the things you can do, is make sure there is an overwhelming victory for Democrats and specifically progressives in 2024, because sons of that punk, there we go, that punk right there has got to go. If that mother effer existed in a Senate that had an overwhelming Democrat majority, he would not be a Democrat. He is our version of George Santos. And I don't agree with George Santos still being allowed to call himself a Republican, still being allowed to be in any political party at all. I don't think you can hold your head high as a political party and allow members into it that do stuff that is contrary to your beliefs. At that point, you are not a political party. You are just, I guess, a voting bloc. The difference being a political party is supposed to have a platform and a set of beliefs. That dude doesn't have them. That dude should not be a Democrat. I want him gone. I assume most people who vote blue do. And the way to do that is make sure we don't need him.
Joe Manchin,
he's
Democrat.
a punk.
Joining us now, White House reporter for Bloomberg News, Josh Wingrove, one of our favorites around here. So let's start with the bill. Josh, walk us through it and how the president got the decision he made.
The ESG bill in particular, I mean, look, this has been swirling a long time, John. This is a lightning rod issue. It kind of has a little bit of elements with critical race theory, and that it's been sort of a rallying cry for Republicans. And of course, that's put Democrats in pretty Republican states or swing states in tough positions. So the temperature is high, and it is sometimes difficult to reconcile some of the rhetoric on this ESG issue with the rule itself. I mean, from some of the criticism, you'd think that it requires every investment manager with a proverbial gun to their head to invest in only windmills and, whatever. That's not the case with this bill. I mean, this bill would sort of lift legal risk for investors who want funds that skew more to this. For instance, if you're someone in your 20s who doesn't believe in heavy carbon type industries, you might not want to put your money in a fund that it piles into fossil fuels or whatever. West Virginia, of course, is a pretty significant fossil fuel sector, so that might be a factor for Senator Manchin as well. So this is just a lightning rod issue that has been sort of like I say, sort of a Republican sort of like a cudgel for some time, and it's not a surprise to see Biden doing it. The DOL had actually rolled back. The final rule is softer than it was to begin with. I do not think that if we do see protests in New York, they will be Wall Street protests on this rule today.
Probably no need to have the additional security.
Again, Biden has become savvy. Ooh. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was always a sharp politician. He was always, he's a smart guy. I'm not gonna pretend like he wasn't able to be savvy before. But he just chose not to do stuff like this. I'm not even gonna guess at his reasons. But it's such a refreshing thing to see him lining up major decisions in a way that screws over. I'm realizing as I say it why he didn't used to do it, in a way that screws over his political opponents. And as I say it, I'm like, oh well, yeah, it's more of that red meat. He just didn't used to like doing that. And normally I would commend that behavior, except in my lifetime, which began not too terribly long before Newt Gingrich's career, the opposition have been villains, straight up villains. So seeing Biden working with these guys has always grated on me, badly, as a matter of fact. I love Dark Brandon, big fan of Dark Brandon. Yeah. There's not going to be a lot of uproar over this because the people who would make the uproar will be distracted. Let me just be clear about what this bill did, because they all did a terrible job of talking about it, and I probably will as well, but I'm going to take a whack. This bill simply allows people who are going to make an investment to have access to information regarding environmental estimates. For example, if you'll recall, we did a whole big stream on the worst regions for global warming in the United States over the next 10 years. And folks, we're at a point where nothing's going to stop that. Like, even if we cease outputting carbon entirely, the carbon dioxide entirely, with everything except our own mouths breathing it, this year, it's still not going to stop the impacts that they're just on the way. Nothing we can do now. If you have that information handy about a piece of property you might be investing in, you may choose not to invest in one place over another. Remember Ben Shapiro, or I don't remember who this was, some wacky right-winger, talking about how if your property is going to be swallowed up by the sea, well, you just sell it. Move on. Who do you sell it to, though? If you get an estimate saying, oh, this house that I bought on the Florida coast is flooding? It's never flooded before. Oh, it looks like it's going to keep flooding and then eventually fall into the ocean within 7 years. I better get rid of it now. This allows the people who were going to, and it's my understanding is it's in regards to major investments, not individual sales necessarily. But using an example, this allows people to have access or to factor in environmental concerns. My point is, it's not a save the environment bill. It's a save the dollar bill. So obviously it had to get vetoed. And obviously Joe Manchin and the other clown that voted, Tester, I think it was, voted for it, should be ashamed.
It is a rallying cry thing. Republicans have seized on it. There are genuine questions about whether this is a slippery slope, but it is not something that will sort of fundamentally change everyone's 401k plan overnight.
So let's get your take on the other story there about the president signing the bill that requires the declassification of as much as possible of the COVID origin. It seems to me that everything about this is really a message about China.
Totally, which has a lot of bipartisan support right now in the building down the road from us. This passed unanimously in the Senate. This is a big issue, and Biden has taken steps here before. So I think in some ways Congress was pushing on an open door. The problem is China is just not.
And I realize the flaw in my example there. It's for retirement investment. It's not for individuals purchasing like homes and stuff like that. I was just boiling it down, but still, the function of it is that, but for retirement investment plans, retirement, whoever, Jesus Christ, Jake, whoever does the purchasing for these. I'm not even sure of the name of the job. I simply know that is who this bill would affect.
Cooperating, to put it lightly. And so whether we ever get to the bottom of this, we don't know. What Biden has previously released is his different agencies disagree. You know, they've got all their view, their sources, their methods, and all of them kind of come up with slightly different outcomes, none of them particularly conclusive. And so it looks like kind of a toss-up still right now. But the bottom line is the U.S. does not know this, and the world health community writ large does not know this, because China is not participating in getting to the bottom of it. Of course, that doesn't really look great for China either way. You know, was it sort of incompetence? Was it malicious? Was it whatever? We don't know. And so I think the odds that we will know, even after this declassification, are pretty low. But I think President Biden, you know, wouldn't have lost a lot of sleep that night. I guess we'll see what they declassify on it. But I wouldn't expect some, you know, flair that says, oh yeah, that's what actually hidden in the closet this whole time has been the answer.
So the bill itself is sort of a layup. It's basically just updating what investors get to find out about when they are planning. Oh, God, here we go. All right. When they are planning retirement plan fiduciaries, it allows them to consider environmental regulations and factors. Excuse me, environmental factors, and as well as social factors. Things that will affect the investment, in other words, that weren't in the past even considered. So any opposition to this can only come from dishonest actors. I mean, unless it's something like protecting an individual's information, it would make no sense to limit the knowledge that an investor can have when making an investment. What can you do? Biden's going to get a lot of hate mail. Link in the description. Absolutely. Contact Joe Biden and tell him good job on the veto. First thing I did upon watching that clip, contacted Joe Biden via the White House contact link. Filled out my information. Said, great job on that veto. You see another thing like this, do it again, and you will have my vote in 2024. I said it. I meant it. If you feel that same way, you should let him know. Supply him with the information he needs to make a wise investment in his time.